And let's go into, since you brought up Russia and Ukraine, you know, and I laugh, and I know this has nothing to do with nuclear war. What I'm going to say right now is that we're giving billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine, which is really going to the weapons manufacturers, to be honest. And, anybody that doesn't believe that is in a dream world by themselves. So we're giving all this money, but there's millions of people on the street right now. Inflation is running rampant. People can't pay their rent, their gas, their food. There's shortages all over the place. Meanwhile, coronavirus and monkeypox is going on. The country is in a travesty. We're in debt so far up our behind because of George Bush and Iraq and Afghanistan and the Obamas and the Bidens and the Trumps funding these wars. So, I mean, the list goes on. And it's really sad because now we're fighting with Russia, which Putin, that's between Ukraine and Russia. We tried to put a proxy war back in 2014 during the Obama administration that no one brings up with Ukraine and Crimea and all this stuff, which was, the Russians' land. We can go back to the Soviet Union, that they own that, whether you're on that side or not. But just to go back into the question, because I don't want to ramble on too much for the listeners. We're putting ourselves even closer towards nuclear war with, doing all these things with Russia now, putting all this money into Ukraine, which is, we're giving them money to attack Russia. And then all this issues with China, Iran. We have to watch out for India because they have a huge, arsenal of nuclear weapons. Also, Pakistan is in the region too with, nuclear capabilities. What is going on right now? The doomsday clock is pretty much almost at midnight. It's like a 1 minute to midnight.
Well, you're asking really excellent questions. I think they're the most important questions of this moment in global history. $54 billion the United States has sent so far to Ukraine. As you say, at a time, my wife works with the homeless in Portland, Maine. She tells me that homelessness is doubling and tripling in our state right now. And so it's absolutely right. And have you heard that a lot of these weapons that the United States and European countries are sending to Ukraine, the Ukrainian government is selling them on the black market and making a lot of money off those weapons. In fact, even Russia, as a way to disarm Ukraine, Russia has even been buying some of the weapons that the United States and France and others have sold. The United States bought one of the high-powered artillery systems. Russia bought that the U.S. sent. Two of the French systems that were sent, Russia bought those as well. And so it's unbelievable.
It's like Comedy Hour. It's really like Comedy Hour, but it's not funny.
Yeah, but the important thing to remember is that the U.S. or during the Obama administration orchestrated a coup d'etat in 2014 in the government in Kiev, an elected government, ran it out, installed a right-wing government backed up by the muscle of Nazis.
Yep.
In Western Ukraine, along the Polish border, is a historic nationalist groupings of people, and in Ukraine, during World War II, when Hitler swept through that region into Ukraine, a guy by the name of Stefan Bandera, a Ukrainian nationalist, joined the Nazis and brought his followers into the Nazis. And they helped, these Ukrainian Nazis helped Hitler kill tens of thousands of Jews, Poles, Gypsies, and Russian ethnic citizens. So these Nazis in Western Ukraine hate Russian ethnics as much as they hate Jews, as much as they hate Poles, etc. And so today, what we've had then since this coup in 2014 is the US has been training and arming and directing these Nazis from Western Ukraine, the legacy of Stefan Bandera in World War II, Hitler, cooperation with Hitler, the US and NATO have been training them. And how do I know they've been training them? Because a friend of mine, his son is in the US Army Special Forces, stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. And he's been sent there. He and his units from Fort Carson have been sent to Western Ukraine repeatedly on rotating basis to train these Nazis. And after that, these Nazis are sent to Eastern Ukraine, right along the Russian border. It's called the Donbass region.
Right.
And that's where the war is happening today. See, as soon as the coup started, right after the coup, the US installed this right-wing government in 2014. The first thing they did was pass a law saying that speaking of Russian in Ukraine was illegal. Well, half the country speaks Russian. You can imagine people were up in arms about it. This is crazy. And so they started holding peaceful protests. They started collecting signatures for referendum campaigns saying, we want a federated Ukraine, meaning we want local autonomy, still part of Ukraine, but local autonomy so we can decide what language we want to speak. Now, what's so terrible about that? But then when they did that, these Nazis that were trained by the US and NATO and armed and directed were sent from the western part of Ukraine to the eastern part, to the Donbass, where they began attacking these Ukrainian citizens, Russian ethnic Ukrainian citizens near the Russian border. And so far, since 2014, they've killed 14,000, 34,000 wounded. And who said a word about that? Who said a word? All we hear about today is, oh, the Ukrainians, those poor Ukrainians, they're dying. The Russians are killing them. Blah, blah, blah. But who cared about all those people that were dying and were wounded since 2014? Nobody gave a damn about it because they were Russian ethnics. Well, let me tell you, this is where we're at. But what's really driving all of this, I think, is climate change. Think about it. Arctic Ocean. Which country in the world has the largest land border with the Arctic Ocean, the Arctic Sea?
Russia.
Russia. Huge. Take a look at a map. It's huge. And so as the Arctic ice melts because of climate change, the Western US, European resource extraction corporations, they want to drill, baby, drill up in the Arctic. But who has the largest border with the Arctic? Well, that's problematic. So they want to break Russia up into smaller countries, like the US and NATO did to Yugoslavia during the Clinton administration, when they bombed the hell out of Belgrade and broke Yugoslavia up into separate countries. They want to do the same thing to Russia. It's regime change. It's balkanization or breaking up of Russia into smaller pieces. That's the real agenda. And they're using Ukraine as a tool to begin to destabilize Russia in order to do so. There's a Rand Corporation report called The Overextending and Unbalancing of Russia. Now, the Rand Corporation is a think tank for the military. It's funded by the military, by the weapons corporations, by the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, etc. And so in this report, they outline this plan. We're going to overextend, we're going to unbalance Russia by using Ukraine as a tool, by forcing Russia to spend a lot of money on military, by forcing Russia to expend a lot of its resources. But if we sanction Russia as a result of this war, we'll destroy their economy. Well, guess what? That didn't work out so well either. Now, the United States and Europe economies are nearing collapse because of the...
Well, the ruble went up.
Yeah, exactly. The blowback from the sanctions is impacting especially Europe. So you begin to think that, oh, maybe these guys running the show here in Washington and in Brussels, where NATO headquarters, maybe they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Well, Biden knows what he's doing. He was in office with Obama in 2014. Even before that, he was on the Foreign Relations Committee in the U.S. Senate. He knows what's going on. He's involved in this game. He knows what's going on. And second of all, if you know the pipeline, remember the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and it makes sense now what you're saying with the Arctic Ocean about how all this is going on, and I'll let you talk in just a second. Just to end on this point before you get into this, Bruce, is that my thing is now with the Russia-Ukraine system, and I know Germany and all these countries said they're obviously not going to use that Russian oil now, but since they were mostly just buying from Russia because it's a lot closer to them, now they're just going into coal, which is worse for the environment in general. So they're starting up all these new coal, which it's cheaper, but it's worse for the environment. They're going to start up all these coal plants again, and it's going to screw us all just because they want to prove a point to screw Russia, the US, and all these European countries. It's a joke.
Well said. Well said. Thank you.
Yeah.
You hit the nail, and you hit the nail with the hammer. Let's say that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I urge people, if they're interested in what I'm talking about, I have a blog called Organizing Notes, Notes, Organizing Notes. And daily I post on this blog. If you just Google Organizing Notes along with my name, Bruce Gagnon, you should find my blog. And you can follow these issues along with me on a daily basis.